So good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming to our Workforce Planning Hamilton halfway through 2024 presentation. So just to begin, this is being recorded because we do like to share our presentations online on YouTube and different platforms for those who were unable to make it. If they're interested, they can access it afterwards. And also to begin, I'd like to just launch a poll quickly that is just asking if anyone has read the halfway through 2024 report, just so we know how much detail people have already gotten and kind of how we'll move forward with the presentation. So I'll launch that now. And it helps us gauge our access to the community with our presentations and whatnot. Okay. Well, I mean, no is not the best answer, but that means we have a lot of fresh faces learning about this presentation, so that's awesome. So thank you for being here. Our team is Workforce Planning Hamilton, so many familiar faces and names in the room. For those who I have not yet met, my name is Michelle Butcher, and I am the new-ish executive director at Workforce Planning Hamilton. I've actually been with the organization for almost 5 years, so I've met most of you along the way. And we have our small but mighty team here as well. So I'll let Amy and Travis introduce themselves and their roles.
Morning, everyone. So my name is Amy Zhang. So I'm the data analyst at Workforce Planning Hamilton. I've been with the organization for, I want to say, around 2 years now. So yeah, nice to see everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi everyone, my name is Travis McCarl. I'm the digital media coordinator for Workforce Planning Hamilton. It's nice to have you all here this morning.
Awesome. So the chat function is on. If you have questions throughout the presentation, we can monitor your questions. Feel free to ask them or just raise your hand and jump in. We love for you to be engaged and share your thoughts and experiences if needed. And yeah, let's get started. So just a little bit about us. We are a team of 3, and we've been around Workforce Planning Hamilton in some capacity with different names since 1997. So we are one of 25 training boards in Ontario. So each pocket of Ontario has their own workforce planning board. We are a nonprofit organization funded by the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development, who haven't changed their name in some time, so I'm sure that's coming, and funded in part by the Government of Canada and the Government in Ontario. And the main goal of what we really aim to do is to support local employers and job seekers by really engaging in community-driven initiatives that assist in providing employment and workforce development solutions to our ever-changing workforce needs. So we are dotted about the community, involved in different things, and really our main goal is to support with workforce development. So for today, we're going to go over the first half of 2024 and really dive into the labor market trends over the first 6 months of the year. And then for those who are aware, we do our labor market consultation at the end of the year, nearing the end of the year, where we kind of go over the full year as a whole and kind of what's happened in our community from there. So some very high level highlights: our population growth contributed to some changes in our community. So overall, our population grew by 8,000 people in the first half of 2024, which is awesome. Hamilton is a big hub for immigration from outside of Canada and as well from within Canada. Living costs in the bigger cities have pushed people to immigrate to different cities and also to arrive here from outside of country. So with a larger population, our labor force actually saw a rise in unemployment. So we'll get into that a little bit further into the presentation. And the first half put Hamilton's agricultural sector at the top growing sector. Of course, this is also dependent on the time of year. So with spring and summer, in the first 6 months, it makes sense that that was one of our growing sectors. And then the rest of the presentation will be a much more deeper dive into what is happening in the first 6 months.
All right, so I'll be covering the first half of 2024. So this slide looks at the first half of 2024 in Hamilton CMA. So for those who might be kind of unfamiliar with geography terminology, CMA just means Census Metropolitan Area. So the larger metropolitan area of Hamilton, Burlington, as well as Grimsby. So the data primarily speaks to the shifts in employment and unemployment during the time as well. So looking at the left-hand side first, we see the changes in Hamilton's unemployed and employed populations throughout the months. So from January to June of 2024, employment within the Hamilton CMA grew by 10,000 persons, translating to a 2% change in the employed population as well. During the first half of 2024, unemployment greatly outpaced employment in Hamilton as unemployed population went up by almost 7,000 persons. And this translates to a related percent increase of 26%. Hamilton's unemployment rate also saw a steady increase in the first half, starting from 6% in January and accelerating to 7.2% in June, which translates further to a 1.3% increase.
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
Yep.
Wait.
Is everyone good?
I think someone's microphone is on.
I think someone's mic might be on. I'm assuming everyone is doing okay, so I will continue. With this side, in comparison, the regional unemployment rate leveled at 6.9%. So if we see on the right-hand side, we can see the different unemployment rates for both Canada, Ontario, and Hamilton. And you can see quite clearly that Hamilton has a much higher unemployment rate than both the provincial and national levels.
Sorry,
So
Amy,
next,
sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to launch a poll.
okay, no worries.
To just see, we wanted to get and see what data trends people are interested in learning about today. So I'll just launch that quickly. It's just for us to gauge also who's attending and kind of what the interest peak is. So which pieces of data are you most interested in learning about today? Youth, labor market information, a general overall understanding, newcomer, Employment Ontario. I know we have a lot of service providers with us today, or industry changes. So I should have made this multiple, like you could choose multiple, but make you choose one. And again, this just helps us understand what people are interested in learning from us to help us improve on our future presentations as well. Awesome. So most people are saying just a general overall understanding. 46%. Awesome. Thank you for participating. Carry on, Amy. Thanks.
So we'll now move on to the first half, looking at the working age characteristics of our population. So to kind of contextualize the changes in employment and unemployment, it is also important to talk about changes in Hamilton's population within the first half. Can't have the labor force without our population, so hand in hand, it is very important to talk about that. So throughout the first half of 2024, the working age population, so those between the ages of 25 to 54, in Hamilton increased by 7,100 persons. With this said, the male population grew by 5,200 persons, or 3.3%. So we can see that most of the population growth was driven by the male population in Hamilton, whereas the female population grew by 1,900, or 1.2%. Historically, the male unemployment rate has been higher than the female unemployment rate due to many factors. For example, women are often caretakers in their families, which means they have less time to contribute to the labor force. including a higher proportion of men to women in the population as well. With this said, the male working age group saw a gradual increase in their unemployment rate in the first half, whereas females saw a gradual decline in unemployment. With this said, the accelerated rise in unemployment for the male working age population may be contributed to the increase in the population, as again, we saw that it grew by 3.3% compared to 1.2% for females. So next, looking at Employment Ontario data. So the demand for labor is only one part of the story when it comes to the health of Hamilton's economy. So it is also imperative to mention the labor supply. So before we delve into the quarterly data, I do want to touch upon the latest Employment Ontario, which looks at the labor supply of our economy or our job seekers. So this slide displays the several Employment Ontario programs in Hamilton and their enrollment changes from last year to this year. So overall, we can see that most programs saw increases to their enrollment for 2024. However, consistent with the provincial trend, the skills trades still face shortages when it comes to tradespersons. As we can see, that for new registrants into the Hamilton Apprenticeship Program has declined by 17% compared to 2023. With this said, we can see the active apprentices have kind of increased from 2022 to 2024, but only modestly at 2%. Next, looking at the Canada Ontario Job Grant, there was a significant increase in the uptake of clients for the program, as you can see here. We can see that employers only increased modestly as well by 2%. But we can see that for clients, they increased by more than double at 76% to a total of 259 new clients for this year. Integrated Employment Services also saw a 19% increase in the number of clients for the 2024 fiscal, as well as literacy and business skills, which saw a 30% increase in the number of new as well as carryover clients, and Better Jobs Ontario, which saw their clients increase by 16%. With this said, I will now pass it over to Travis to go into more detail into the Employment Ontario data.
All right, so for apprenticeships, enrollments have decreased. Compared to last year, new apprenticeship registrants decreased by 17%. The enrollment by age group, we see the highest percentage between the ages of 15 and 24 at 53.3%, followed by the ages of 25 to 44 at 43.8%, and the ages of 45 to 64 at 2.9%. The top 5 new registrants by trade are electrician, industrial mechanic millwright, plumber, general carpenter, and auto service tech. So for Canada Ontario Job Grant, enrollments have increased. Compared to last year, clients increased by 76% and employers increased by 2%. Most employers who enrolled had less than 50 employees at 65%, whereas more than 50 employees were 35%. Enrollment by labor force, we had 90% employed full-time, 8% employed part-time, and 3% unemployed. Integrated Employment Services, again, we have an increase here. Compared to last year, enrollment into Integrated Employment Service programs increased by 19%, with the highest age bracket being the age between 25 and 44 at 56.1%, followed by the ages of 45 to 64 at 24%. A little lower, we have the ages of 15 to 24 at 18.3% and 65 plus at 1.6%. The enrollment by designated groups, we had 3% for Indigenous, 2% Deaf, 5% Francophone, 31% Newcomer, 34% Persons with Disability, and 55% Racialized. For literacy and basic skills, another increase. Compared to the last fiscal, the number of new LBS learners increased by 13%. 14% of those coming from community agencies, 22% coming from community college, and 64% coming from the school board. They were referred in mostly by informal referrals, followed by formal referrals, and then clocking in the first actual non-informal or informal. We had 197 for ES providers, 64 for pre-apprenticeship, 41 for LBS providers, followed by 17 for services for Indigenous people, 16 for Ontario Works, 15 for language assessment training, and 11 for other. And finally, for Better Jobs Ontario, again, another increase compared to the last fiscal. The number of enrollees increased by 16%. Enrollment by age group, again, 25 to 44 at the highest at 60.6%, followed by 45 to 64 at 32.4%, and followed by 15 to 24 at 7.1%. The majority of income source was employment insurance, followed by no source of income, followed by Ontario Works at 42 and Ontario Disability Support Program at 21. And
So now we'll go into kind of the quarterly changes for the first half of 2024. So kind of to start off as a prelude, look at some industry changes for the first half. So from January to June of 2024, the top growing industries for Hamilton, as we discussed earlier, were the agricultural sector, which grew by 22%, the tech sector by 16%, and accommodation and food services at 12%. So again, a lot of these changes can be due to seasonal trends, such as tourism affecting different industries in Hamilton, and as such. With this said, the top declining industries for the first half of 2024 were utilities at a decline of 18%, other services with a decline of 10%, and construction with a decline of 7%. So despite an offset in gains seen in goods and services sector, minor employment gains also drove the first half of 2024, as overall employment was up by a modest 2%. So with this said, next we will go into more depth into the labor force changes by each quarter for 2024, and this is speaking primarily to the Hamilton census metropolitan area. So first, looking at the youth labor force for Hamilton. So this slide looks at employment and unemployment for Hamilton's youth labor force in the first quarter. So for the context of this webinar, youth are usually categorized by Stats Canada as well between the ages of 15 to 24 years old. So overall, unemployment rose among youths with an increase of 600 unemployed youths during this time. On the contrary, employment also declined by 500 youths. We can see an overall increase in the number of unemployed youths and those not really in the labor force as employed, either in part-time or full-time employment. With this said, most of the employment seen for the first quarter were also headed by male youths as well. Next, looking at the immigrant labor force in the first quarter for Ontario. Keep in mind this is for Ontario and not for Hamilton. Sometimes data for Hamilton or for the census divisions are not readily available at a granular level. So sometimes we do rely on Ontario level or provincial level data to kind of supplement what's going on in different populations. So for the first quarter, Ontario saw an influx of 43,000 newcomers. For a larger population, unemployment consequently rose, as seen in the blue bar, which is displayed on the right-hand side. With the newcomer unemployment rate increasing from 6.2% to 6.8%. With this said, the immigrant unemployment rate, so those that have landed 10 plus years ago, remained largely unchanged and actually lower than the general population's unemployment rate. Keeping in mind that the general population unemployment rate also takes into consideration the newcomer unemployment rate, the immigrant unemployment rate, and also the non-immigrant unemployment rate as well. So it's an amalgamation of all three of those characteristics. Next, looking into industry changes in the first quarter. So on the left-hand side displays the top growing industries, and on the right, the top declining industries. So for the context of this presentation or this webinar, top growing or declining just means the growth or decline in employment for that particular industry. And this is also headed again by Statistics Canada data, specifically the labor force survey. So firstly, looking at top growing, public administration led a charge in employment growth for the first half for the increase of 17%. Following were accommodation and food services, transportation and warehousing, finance and insurance, as well as other services. Next, looking to the top declining industries, business building and other support services experienced the largest decline in employment for a decline of 15%. Following were wholesale and retail trade, information, culture and recreation, construction, as well as manufacturing. Notably, since the peak of the housing bubble back in 2022, housing starts have faltered in 2024. So to kind of give some context, Housing starts in the second quarter of 2023 were at a total of 25,000 units. So housing starts, just to be clear, are just a new housing builds that are happening in Ontario. However, by the first quarter of 2024, so of this year, the total number of housing starts declined to 18,000. So we can see that housing demand has slightly waned in Ontario, and this again translates to almost a 30% decline. Subsequently, we see employment falter in construction and manufacturing, as well as business and other building services, as these three industries are often heavily entangled in the housing sector as well. So next, starting off into the second quarter. So compared to the start of the year, employment declined for Hamilton's youth population by 300 youths. However, this did not deter employment, as job opportunities in the beginning of the summer marked high employment for Hamilton's youth as well. In particular, we can see employment gradually increased from April to June by almost 3,000 employed youths. We also see less youths detached from not being in the labor force, so that means they're either in employment or they're either looking for a job or actively searching for work, so in the unemployed category as well. This also overall signals to an overall increase in youth employment for the second quarter, which is promising to see. It also makes sense with cyclical and seasonal changes, such as summer employment opening up more opportunities for our youth. Next, looking at the immigrant labor force for the second quarter, for Ontario specifically. So Ontario's newcomer labor force saw unemployment rise to an unemployment rate of 7.8% in June. So for the first part, the immigrant unemployment rate remained below the low unemployment benchmark of 6%, with the general population's unemployment rate at 6.9%. Next, looking at industry changes for the second quarter. So we can see that for the most part, the second quarter of 2024 saw industry employment gains swap. For the most part, industries that experienced declines in the first quarter saw gains in the second. Much of this can be due to seasonal changes, as we've already discussed, with industries like information, culture, and recreation being affected by tourism, but also usually peaks during the summer as well. The top growing industry for the second quarter was business building and other support services, followed by information, culture, and recreation, the tech sector, manufacturing, and wholesale and retail trade. The increase in business and building services and manufacturing fall in line with a slight increase in housing starts seen in the second quarter for Ontario. So in the second quarter in Ontario, housing starts increased by almost 1,000, translating to 19,000 housing starts in the second quarter, which is up from the previous 18,000. So we can see that the housing sector is closely related to both the manufacturing as well as construction sectors and those that work primarily within kind of like the skilled trades. We can see that like if housing starts to increase, then there is more chance that there will be more employment in construction, manufacturing, as well as business and other support services as well. That being said, the top decline industries followed as other services, public administration, transportation and warehousing, plus utilities, finance and insurance, and accommodation and food services. With this said, I'll now pass it back to Michelle to talk about the job demand and wages, as well as our current projects here at WPH.
Thank you. So job demand and wages. The top 5 occupations and employers from January to June 2024. As per usual in our community, retail salesperson seems to be at the top of the available jobs. And a lot of that is based on our small businesses in Hamilton. A lot of them employ retail salespersons, nurses, registered nurses. Again, we have a big healthcare sector. So there's always a demand for nurses, admin assistants, truck drivers, and food services. So based on our website, we're able to pull job postings and the most in-demand jobs. So there were collected job postings from 6,517 employers between January to June 2024. So out of those almost over 6,500 employers, there was 31,000 865 job postings available from January to June. And with hourly wages, there was an increase of average offered hourly wages in the Hamilton, with a current wage of 26.25 per hour, so $26.25 per hour. And Hamilton's top hiring employer for the first half of 2024 was McMaster University, with over 1,600 job postings. A lot of contract work, I think, is available at McMaster, so there's a lot of turnaround in terms of reposting of jobs. And I'm just going to launch a poll, last one for today, about some hiring challenges. Oh, I don't know why there's two questions. Just the first one should be answered. Did you experience any hiring challenges at your organization in the first half of 2024? And if so, could you please share what they might be? There's often a lot of trends in the challenges, in demand jobs, and what's happening in the community. So we like to hear if anybody has anything to share. And this again helps us reflect on how we can support the community, and how the data we have available can support organizations and employers within our community. So I'll give people a little while to answer those questions. And again, if you have any questions about any of the data so far or anything you want us to go back to cover, please let us know. We're happy to go back. We'll just give a few minutes because this one you're able to type into, so people might need a few minutes to share their thoughts. I'll just give it 30 more seconds in case people need to finish up their answers. And then we can move on to what's happening with Workforce Planning Hamilton. So this really concludes kind of the data portion in terms of the labor market trends. We just wanted to touch base on what's happening with us, and what's happening with our plans for the rest of the year. So to begin, many of you might know that we host a local labor market plan every year. And what this is really a community consultation to hear what the community has to say with regards to our local labor force. And what we do, it'll be a similar kind of presentation on labor market information and overview of the year. But then the engaging and interesting part for us is hearing from employers, post-secondary institutions, other educational systems, community partners, service providers, about what your priorities for supporting the workforce or what challenges you have had, and what you see upcoming in the future. The community part and the consultation part really shapes the work that we do at Workforce Planning Hamilton. So without our community feedback, we have no work to do. So we really are very community based and very community focused, and we would love to have as many people as possible sharing their voices at our community consultation. We're thinking late November. We should get a confirmation of our hosting, where we'll be hosting it by the end of September. So keep an eye out for that for that invitation. We'd love to have you. The more voices we have, the stronger our priorities are, and that really will focus on the projects that we do for next year. So please keep an eye out for that. That being said, some of our priorities from last year's consultation have translated into projects that we're doing this year. So one of them is focusing on the green economy of Hamilton. This has been a huge undertaking because there's so much information out there. So we really tried to do an overview of what's happening in Hamilton's local green economy, and really just give an overview of the landscape of what's happening in that realm. where we've identified local green employers, green jobs, top skills in the green economy. We're going to do a little bit of employer engagement with some of our top green hiring employers and wrap that all up in a lovely report that is nearly completed, and share that with the community. So that's something that will be coming out in the coming months as well, with city level initiatives, engagement with employers about what's happening in our economy. So that was an interesting one for us because it is such a broad spectrum with limited definitions. So we had quite a deep dive into what's happening in the community in the space of the green economy. So that will be released in the coming weeks, I believe. And then another focus from last year's consultations were early childhood education and how the sector's really struggling in Hamilton and across Ontario. So shortages in the skilled trades extend beyond construction and manufacturing sectors. And by 2025, which is literally a few months away, there will be a shortage of over 8,000 early childhood educators. For anybody who has children looking for daycare, you will feel the struggle there. Daycare wait lists are up to several years now to get on a wait list just because the workforce isn't there. And we strongly believe here that early childhood education is a backbone to our economy. Without reliable and affordable childcare, parents can't go to work, and if people aren't working, then we have no economy. So ECEs play a super important role in our economy, and with the lack of the ECE sector growing, there's a lot of struggles within our economy. So we partnered with the McMaster Research Shop to identify some of the pain points of Hamilton's early childhood education workers. So with a mix of interviews and a survey that went out, we tried to go. We're well aware that the wages of ECEs is a massive pain point in the sector, but we wanted to know beyond that what some of the issues were. So that project, the research has been completed. We're just going to be putting it into a report now to wrap it all up. So that is also coming out soon. So we will be able to share that at our community consultation as well. An important piece of work to us and to our community. So we're looking forward to sharing that as well. And then something we're really focusing on as Workforce Planning Hamilton this year is our connections to employers and organizations in the community. Those who have worked with us know what we do, and those who haven't might not know how we can support you. So like we've said, being part of the community is huge for us and is really what allows us to do the work that we do. So some examples of how we can support our local community is that we do things such as partner on funding applications. So SDFs are out right now. If you need real-time Hamilton labor market information to strengthen your applications or to prove to the funder why you're applying for funding for such a program, please reach out. We're happy to help you strengthen your application and provide that data that will back up what you're trying to achieve. We support advocacy through uncovering labor market trends, through surveys, helping local employers, engaging with employers in their needs. Our main goal is bridging employer and job seeker pipelines, and we do this through hosting job fairs, supporting with local employment service provider events and projects. We support community events through engagement and marketing. So if you have any events coming up, you're recruiting for participants, you're looking to get your event out there, please email us, tag us on social media, DM us, do whatever you need to do. We're happy to share it. We have a bi-weekly newsletter that we share community events in, and we're happy to help you get that word out there. We also provide tailored and personalized labor market presentations. So something like we've just went through, we can tailor that to maybe a presentation you're doing to community partners, a community group. We recently did a youth LMI overview for a at-risk street youth group, a community group. So we just tailored the presentation to really focus on youth and some solutions to youth unemployment. So if you're interested in something like that, please reach out. We're happy to help you with that. And we also supply personalized labor market requests through our data request form on our website. So if you do come across some data you're looking for, just jump on our website, send us a quick email. In the right-hand column kind of covers in general what we can provide you with. So specific time periods, maybe industry sector or job specific data you're looking for based on age, sex, gender, or ethnicities, education levels and skills, labor force characteristics, wages and employment trends, migration data, business counts, Employment Ontario data. We cover a lot, and if it's not on there, please send us an email, and if we have access to it or through Stats Canada and our consultant there, we might be able to help you. Again, keep us in mind when you're applying for funding and need some of that labor market research that on a very local level. We're happy to help you there. And last but not least, since you have attended this, we're happy to share that we have a very exciting forum coming up. You all are the first to hear about it because we have not advertised it at all. We thought we'd start here. So as a thank you, you will have access to the first spots in this. So Workforce Collective is the Niagara Workforce Planning Board. They have funding from IRCC to do some immigrant employment forums. So they approached our team at Workforce Planning Hamilton to see if we wanted to host any in Hamilton, and we said absolutely. So Wednesday, October 2nd, we will be hosting 2 facilitations, an AM and a PM one. And they will be, the aim is to capture valuable insights and inspire collaborative and innovative solutions to integrating immigrants and newcomers into employment. So this is actually a nationwide project that is being held throughout the country, and Workforce Collective from Niagara is hosting a portion of it. So your participation will help identify actionable solutions both at local and national levels to the ongoing challenges faced by employers, newcomers, and other system actors successfully integrating immigrants into the workforce. So the goal is to bring together diverse groups within the immigrant employment system, such as employers, service providers, public sector professionals, educational institutions, to really explore challenges and solutions related to immigrant employment. The facilitation that is held is super engaging and solution focused. So we will be leaving the room with solutions that the Workforce Collective team can provide to IRCC. And they will be doing a report for us as well based on the feedback that is gathered at the Hamilton session. So we'll be able to share that with the community as well. Spaces are very limited. I think there's about 30 spaces for each session. We ask for 1 representative unless you have multiple kind of departments within your organization for somebody to attend. If you are interested in attending, please RSVP to Jamie at workforcecollective.ca. And if you could just list the organization you're coming from, which session, morning or afternoon session, you're interested in participating in, or if you're flexible for both, you might be able to be squeezed into the whatever one has more availability. But we're really looking for a balance of employers, service providers, and other community partners. So registration is a bit designed to make sure we have as many voices in the room as possible that represent the community. So if you are interested, please send an email. You will be the first ones to get a spot. And like we said, it is quite limited, and we're partnered with HIPSI, the HIPSI team, Hamilton Immigration Partnership Council. So they'll be supporting with recruitment for employers and community partners to participate in this. I've attended their design labs before that Workforce Collective holds, and they're very engaging and very interesting, and it'll be a really great session, and we're really looking forward to it. So that is available as well. And that concludes our presentation today. We've given lots of extra time, which is nice. Thank you so much for joining. We just thought it would be great to share what's happening in our community, labor market wise. I mean, a lot of the work we do is very data heavy, so we try to make it as engaging and interesting as possible. Does anybody have any questions or any feedback, things you want clarified? We're happy to help. If not, please stay tuned for our fall updates of what's coming with our projects being launched, our reports coming out. Our community consultation will be doing a big push for that, and just what's to come in the coming months. So thank you again for coming.